Welcome everyone. Today we're diving into a really special, deeply reflective explainer. We're tackling an incredibly profound and honestly a beautifully uncomfortable question from therapist and Jungian analyst Urvasi Claudia Alagna. Her work beautifully merges depth psychology with spiritual philosophy, and today it's all about true inner transformation. We're going to hold up a mirror, right? Not to judge ourselves, but to really understand our own internal machinery. So the fundamental question we're exploring today is simple, but it literally changes absolutely everything. Who is actually living your life?
Just let that question sink in for a second. Is it your soul or your unconscious automatism? We all love to believe that we're making these totally free, conscious choices every single day. But often, we're really just repeating. We repeat relationship patterns, we repeat reactions, we repeat old fears, and we repeat the exact same ways of running away or over-obeying that we learned when we were kids. So this explainer is designed to help us look at all of this completely without guilt, so we can figure out exactly where our choices are actually coming from.
Okay, let's dive right into this. First up, the origin of automatism. Where does this whole thing even begin?
When we say automatism, we aren't just talking about a simple habit, like biting your nails or always taking the same route to work. Not at all. And automatism is a deep internal program. It literally fires off and reacts before our conscious mind even arrives on the scene. It's like something happens and bam, you've already reacted. You've already put your guard up. You're attacking, you're fleeing, or maybe you're instantly people-pleasing. It's this automatic, defensive reaction where your soul simply isn't present in the driver's seat. Basically, the program has completely taken the wheel.
Now looking at the roots of this, things like unhealed trauma, childhood survival tactics, unspoken family mandates, it is absolutely vital to understand here, with deep warmth and compassion for yourself, that these programs do not exist because you're weak or incapable or bad. No way! They were born out of pure necessity. Your automatism was created to protect you when you were incredibly vulnerable. For instance, if you learned as a kid that speaking up was dangerous, well, you developed the automatism of staying silent just to survive. The issue isn't that these protective mechanisms were born. The problem is that they're still governing your life today, long after the danger has actually passed.
All right, moving on to part 2, automatism in action. Let's look at how this invisible dictator actually plays out in our real, everyday lives.
The absolute crucial difference here lies at the very root of our choices. To live from automaticism is to react before you even feel. You're choosing based on fear, or the desperate need for approval, or just playing the character you had to invent to survive. To live from the soul, on the other hand, well, it's not some floaty, abstract spiritual fantasy. It simply means you stop being completely governed by all that anxiety. The soul doesn't push you with this frantic urgency. It calls you from a place of silent, deep certainty. And honestly, the most fascinating part, the external action might look exactly the same. You can say no to someone from your soul, or you can say no from a place of hard, defensive automaticism. You can help a friend from your soul, or you can help them out of a desperate need to be needed. The root, where the action actually comes from, is what changes the whole shebang.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this unconscious program practically colonizes the most important areas of our lives. Just look at relationships. An automatism will literally make a person choose the exact same type of partner over and over, repeating a cycle of abandonment or control. Or look at work. It sabotages our success or keeps us waiting endlessly for someone else's permission to thrive. How about the body? The automatism ignores physical signals until our bodies just can't carry the burden anymore. In our words, it makes us smile and say yes when we are desperately screaming no on the inside. And yep, even in our spirituality, it totally tricks us into confusing mere resignation with actual genuine peace.
Okay, part 3. Let's bring in a little depth psychology to give this a solid framework. Jungian shadows and masks.
So in Jungian language, an automaticism appears when a complex takes over. What exactly is a complex? Well, it's an unconscious force. Think of it like a wounded inner character. Maybe it's a mother complex, a deep fear of rejection, your wounded inner child, or the shadow. And it basically establishes a false self. When a complex activates, it just grabs the controls. You, your conscious ego, might say, hey, I made a totally free decision to walk away from that relationship, but if you look really closely, you didn't actually decide. You just reacted. A scared, defensive, or maybe resentful inner character was the one actually pulling the levers for you.
Let's look at how this shows up in our everyday language. Have you ever caught yourself saying these phrases?
That's just how I am. Or, this always happens to me. I can't help it, it's my character. What's so fascinating is that the automatism absolutely loves to disguise itself as your personality. These common phrases, they are usually incredibly clever disguises. They don't actually describe your essential, true self. They describe a defensive shell that you've simply repeated for so many years that you completely forgot you were wearing it.
Which brings us to part 4, the truth of the soul. Let's talk about what this silent director really is.
I absolutely love this quote from Alagna's work. Listen to this closely. The automatism belongs to the past. The soul belongs to the present. This is absolutely the key. The automatism is always responding to old ghosts. It sees your demanding father in your current partner. It sees childhood humiliation in a tiny, minor piece of feedback at work. But the soul distinguishes. The soul looks at the situation and says, okay, this feels similar, but it is not the same. That ability to distinguish what is actually happening right now in the present moment, that is true freedom.
Let's look at the profound difference this makes in real time. The old reaction is super tense and defensive, right? Someone doesn't text you back, and you immediately spiral into feelings of abandonment. But the conscious response is calm and grounded. Someone doesn't text you back, and you simply observe what is getting activated inside you. The old reaction: someone criticizes me and I defend myself with blind rage. The conscious response: someone criticizes me and I pause. I pause to distinguish if there's any actual truth to it, or if it just triggered my old shame. It's the journey from being a helpless prisoner to a program, to stepping into true present-moment sovereignty.
And finally, part 5, the throne of your life. It's time to ask, who is really in charge? I want you to ask yourself this. Really let it sit. What part of me decides when I am afraid? Is it my conscious adult self? Or is it a frightened child from 30 years ago? You see, we conquer our free will not by somehow magically having zero impulses. We conquer it by having the courage to question our deepest impulses before we blindly obey them.
What pattern do I repeat even though it hurts? Think warmly and honestly about your own moments of intimacy or conflict. What character suddenly appears and just takes over when you feel rejected? What do you automatically do to avoid feeling abandoned? Remember, this is not about judging yourself at all. It's about gently uncovering the truth.
What old wound is choosing for me right now? What outdated family mandate am I still obeying? The goal here isn't to hate your protective shell. Honestly, the goal is to observe it, to lovingly thank it for keeping you safe when you were small, and then firmly and absolutely telling it, hey, thank you so much, but you can no longer drive my life. You are taking back the steering wheel.
And honestly, the whole thing comes down to this sacred pause. True inner freedom isn't about being perfect. It's definitely not about never feeling fear or pretending you don't have a history. It is all about cultivating that single, brief, conscious space between the stimulus and your response. Your life fundamentally changes the moment you stop obeying your very first impulse and instead listen to where that impulse is actually coming from. Because in that 1 second of consciousness, the soul finally recovers command. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought to take with you today. The next time you face a difficult conversation, a deep desire, or a sudden fear, who you're going to let sit on the throne of your life?